I want to quickly talk about breadth versus depth in software projects. You know that excitement that you get when a shiny new project idea hits you? Then you just spin up a repo quickly, you push your code for about a week, then boom, you just abandon that project, you move on to the next because you've gotten a new shiny idea. But what if the difference between someone who hops between projects and someone who builds real impact projects is just the depth of those projects? So we're going to have two people, right? So we have person A here, and we also have person B, right? Again, I have some really cool skills in terms of drawing. So this is going to be person A, and this is going to be person B here. Let's say person A is the one who jumps across a lot of projects. So you have like project 1, project 2, project 3. There are all these new shiny ideas that they're jumping through. But person B only has a single project, and they're going to decide to just dig deeper in this project so that they can have the most growth, the most learning, and have the most impact in this project. So in this video, I'm going to explain to you what depth looks like in software engineering projects and why most people avoid this kind of depth, and how focusing on depth can transform your skills in and even your career actually. So let's say I want us to just work on a simple project here. We're going to look at a simple, let's say, personal budgeting app. A simple personal budgeting app, because money relates to everyone, and we all budget, we all have expenses, and this is one of those projects that at first glance looks so simple. But let's try and see how in-depth such a project can go. Let me try to switch the colors a little bit. Let's try to see how deep this project can be. Now, remember, person A is the one who hops across many projects. Then person B is the one who goes in depth. But let's start with person A. What does shallow depth look like? In this case, not really shallow depth even. This is just breadth in this case. This person is the one who is going to build a budgeting app, but the initial build only contains two things. Let me just switch here to text. The initial build is going to, let's say, allow users to, let's say, users can add income and maybe expenses, right? Users can add income and maybe something like expenses. Only these two things. Then let's say, let's give them some room here. Let's say this person is also going to display the total balance. Let me just say total balance, right? So this is where most people usually stop, because again, it's a simple budgeting app. What more do you need? You just want to add your income, add your expenses, then let it give you the total balance, and that way, you already know how you can budget throughout the month or whatever period of time that you set. So here we just have very simple thing. Then this person is going to have another shiny idea from a budgeting app. Now they want to build maybe a health application. Then next time they just want to build an AI powered solar panel, whatever other thing is. But they're just going to hop through many of these projects that they're thinking of. But let's look at person B. How is person B going to approach a project like this one, right? For person B, I'm going to use, let me use red. Red is fine. Person B is going to approach this project a lot different. And person B is going to just break this project down into multiple phases, multiple aspects of depth. The first bit is going to be technical depth, right? So in technical depth, this person is going to, let's say, add user accounts. So we're going to have user accounts. We're going to have user accounts. This means you're going to have logins, signups, password resets in case someone does not forgets their password. This person is going to have a database schema set up really good, where we have users, we have different categories of these users, we have a database, a schema for transactions, but they're going to have like a database schema for a lot of the things they're going to do. This person is also going to introduce things such as, let's say, testing. So remember, testing is super important whenever you're writing your code. So they're going to write unit test for, let's say, balance calculation, because you don't want a case whereby you're not calculating your balance correctly, or there are certain minor errors that might slip through. So you add testing for unit tests, in this case for calculating the balance of this budgeting that you're doing. Then this person is the one who is also going to do, let's say, they're going to just refactor their code. So this person is going to refactor their code so that their code is a bit more maintainable. Just from this part alone of technical depth, you've seen how deep in depth this project is, right? We have all the user accounts, we have database schemas, we have unit tests already set up. This person is going to refactor code. But apart from technical depth, there can also be feature depth. So let's say here feature, yeah, let's say feature depth. So in feature depth, this person is going to do also a number of things, right? They're going to have, let's say, multiple categories when it comes to budgeting. Let me just make this a bit clear. They're going to have multiple categories. For example, let me just write here categories. They're going to have multiple categories. These multiple categories include, for example, maybe you may have groceries, right? Rent is also part of that. Travel is part of this as well, and many of the other features that they can add. But at least there's a categories feature when it comes to budgeting. So you budget for a specific thing that you want. This person is going to go ahead and add another feature, for example, feature of, let's say, monthly reports. So here monthly reports, and these monthly reports are going to have, for example, some graphs that are going to help the user, visualize what their budgeting looks like. This person will even go further. After giving the users, rather, the monthly reports, they're going to allow users to export their reports via, let's say, CSV. Should be CSV here, as a CSV file. Then this person can even go ahead and add a notification feature so that they can also tell the users, you have some overspending alerts. Look at, after analyzing the kind of budgeting and data that the user has given, they can give the user a lot of information about, let's say, they tell the user that you're going beyond the budget that you set for this month, or there's some anomalies in terms of your spending is usually, let's say, $1,000 a month, but this month has spiked to $5,000. What might have gone wrong? But as you can see, there's already some feature depth here, as opposed to someone who is just, creating a very simple add income and expenses and then get the total balance. The other thing that you can look at in terms of depth apart from feature is, let's say, something like user and product depth. So what does user and product depth mean, or what does it really look like? This looks like, let's talk about the onboarding, right? So this is in terms of, falls under user experience. In user experience, there's going to be, for example, an onboarding flow that is going to get this user to, let's say, add their first transaction so that they can start tracking their budgeting, or the budgeting and tracking the expenses. So user experience comes really handy in terms of this kind of depth. This is someone who is going to have, for example, analytics. These analytics are going to help the basically track how people are using the application. I mean, you're the developer, you want to understand how people are using your application. What are some of the features that you can add or remove, or just try to do some modifications? But this person is going to have analytics to dictate the next steps they're going to take in terms of this project. And then one of the main things that all these people have in common is iteration. This person is going to iterate aggressively so they're going to receive user feedback, right? Once you have this kinds of features to users and you're getting feedback from the ones who've started using, use this feedback to iterate on that project and try to improve on it. So for example, a user tells you that they need you to add dark mode to the application. So that is a feature. So you add dark mode, then you get another feature request from the users. You just keep on iterating on all of these things. Another sort of depth that such a user, rather such a developer can have is, let's say, operational. Actually, this is one of the most important, operational depth. Operational depth looks like, let's say, when you want to deploy your application, you can deploy your application on the cloud with Docker. A user who is not focused on depth might just create a simple Google sheet for people to use and just leave it at that. But because this user is focused on depth, or this developer is focused on depth, they're going to, for example, deploy this project on the cloud with Docker. Others, the one who is not focused on depth might still deploy it, but not with Docker. They just use something else, right? They are going to add something like monitoring and logging. Let me just use logging in this case. They're going to log everything. Remember, logging is one of the most important things in software development. You need to track everything that is happening in your project. You need to know who logged at what time, what did they do. That way, even when when you're going to do your audits on the logs that are provided, you can be able to do really good audits, understand what did what in case there's something that has been broken in the way your flow goes on the application. Because you have all the logs, you can easily tell what kind of activity broke this application that I'm building, right? These are people who already know how to handle things like downtime, right? You can be able to handle downtime easily because you understand your project in depth. You've already expanded your mind in terms of the possibilities of what can happen on this project. And let me add something like, for example, security. Security is super important. Remember, you're dealing with people's finances, right? You need to encrypt some of the user data that you're having here. For example, like the most basic thing is just as simple as hashing passwords. And if there's some more intimate information about your users you're collecting, you need to make sure that that information is secure. But these are some of the things that you can see in terms of the technical depth. And all this is going to boil down to one main thing that this person is going to have and will triumph over any other sort of developer. And that is what we refer to as, or rather what I'm going to refer to as, personal growth. Personal growth depth. So personal growth depth is where, you know how this developer already knows how to build authentication, they know how to build databases, they know how to scale their applications, because you've seen how much depth they've gone into. This is someone who understands their product end to end, so they know how to scale. They already understand how to have systems in place to enable user feedback loops, right? For example, we've talked about the simple case of having a feature request from a user telling you they need dark mode, and then you add that dark mode to the application, right? So these skills that this person has learned from this project are skills that are transferable to any project. And trust me, this person B who is focused on depth is always going to triumph over person A. Person A can have the coolest ideas, but the fact that they lack that depth, they're not going to get anywhere near what person B can do, right? You can see all of these things, right? Now, let's quickly talk about why. I'm not going to even type anything else at this point, but let's just talk about why depth beats project hopping, right? So when you're focusing on breadth, like person A is doing, you're going to feel excited. You're going to feel excited on a lot of the things that you're doing, but you're also going to feel shallow in terms of even your technical understanding. So you're going to have technical debt in this case. I mean, I feel like this should be this should be a punchline, right? You are focused on technical breadth, but you have technical debt as a result of that. Yeah, that sounds so cool. Anyway, let's move on. So, breath is going to feel exciting at the beginning, but it is so shallow because you only scratch the surface, and scratching the surface is not enough. But depth is going to feel slow. Remember, breath is going to be exciting. You're going to get that adrenaline rush. Then once it's done, or once it has died off, you try to look for another adrenaline rush. That is one of the reasons why you end up hopping across many projects. But if you're focusing on breath, it's going to feel slow, right? The progression is going to be slow, but it is so powerful because you end up unlocking a lot of career changing skills by just virtue of you focusing on a single project, as simple as a budgeting application. A budgeting application can have all of these things. And these are some of the things that recruiters and people looking at the projects you built are going to look at. Like, how much depth do you go to whenever you're building a project? Because this displays your technical understanding and your basically software architecture understanding of how to build projects. So one day project is stronger than having 20 projects in your portfolio, and people are going to take you serious as a result of that. So you're going to have one day project, a stronger portfolio as a result of that. Then employers, even investors and users are going to see you as a serious person because of the amount of depth that you've gone through, or rather you've gone to. So the simple call to action that I have for you here, the bottom line is, the next time you get that shiny new idea, I want you to just pause, take a break, even just count, take a deep breath, but just pause. Then ask yourself, can I push my can I push my current project deeper instead? Instead of jumping onto this new idea, can I push my current project deeper? Because that is where the real growth lies. So If you found this useful, please subscribe, because I'll be breaking down how to actually go deeper into your projects, feature by feature and skill by skill as we move forward. And I look forward to do a lot more of this. Share this with your friends and anyone who you think is going to find this more helpful. So thank you and cheers.